God, I miss Ecstasy. Do you know what I mean?
Aloha and welcome to this episode of Experts and Idiots, featuring me, 420 Chilli Sash, and my very good mate, head honcho of the Capsaicin Cartel in Quebec, Canada, El Jefe, otherwise known as Nico. Now, what you might know about me, what you might know about my friend over there in Canada, is that we're a couple of chili heads, that's for sure correct. But also, we're a couple of reformed wasters. See, I was very much a drug addict with a little bit alcoholism on the side, and he was very much an alcoholic with a little bit drug addiction on the side. And both of us have recovered. Now, today we have drug war stories for you, the Alternative Recovery Extreme Chili Challenge. Now, what's that all about? Well, recovery. Recovery does not always mean that you have to find God and give everything up and hate your previous lifestyle and your previous life and all of that stuff. No. Recovery isn't a one-size-thing-fits everybody. And a lot of people, like myself and the dear El Jefe over here, we recovered, but that doesn't mean we hate our former lives. For sure, we had a problem. We needed to get better, but we also had a fuck ton of fun. And we like to sit down and enjoy remembering that. It helps us with our recovery. And that's what we've got for you today. A nasty burn session with our various poisons. I'm on my favorite, the Hindenburg candy floss. Lovely, lovely chili extract. We'll blow your tits off that. And my boy, El Jefe, is on his favourite at the moment, which is his own personal green Reaper sauce from the Capsaicin Cartel. So, we're going to have a burn, and we're going to have a little wander through the many years of misspent youth that we have behind us. Enjoy.
You remember, because the first Ecstasy that I remember came from England. And it was with the acid. Yeah, England. The first ones I tried that came from England, and it was with Acid House, the smiley face.
The smiley face on it. Yeah, well, you know something. The way it's interesting you say that as a guy from the Netherlands, because sorry, dying from this fucking tincture. Excuse me. Thank God for the electric cigarette. I can't smoke cigarettes in here. I'm in the chili lounge, you know. Because the way the Ecstasy in England happened was like this. 1989, up until 1989, we were a speed culture, and Acid House was running in the last couple of years from there. And then in 89, famously, a promoter from the Hacienda nightclub in Manchester, which had only just opened, which was the center for the North England rave and kind of indie scene it became. And someone from there went to the Netherlands and got a toothpaste tube and filled it up with ecstasy tablets, emptied it and filled it up with ecstasy tablets and smuggled it back to the Hacienda in 89. And that was the first ecstasy tablets that arrived in Britain. And I remember it fucking clearly. And the reason I remember it is because, so this is what it did. Our house was at the end of a road with a football stadium on the arse end of the road, and the football hooligans, the 80s in England, were doing speed drinking alcohol, and so they got violent, and they'd be running up the road after these football games, fighting. We'd have to clean the blood off the fucking front driveway of the house. It's no joke, really, literally wash blood off the floor. And then 89 that was, right? All my childhood to 89. And then the Hacienda import happened in 89, and it went over England so massively, that if you check this out, you'll find this online. In 1990, in the World Cup, the British song for the World Cup was called E is for England. And it was written by a comedian. It was written by a comedian called Keith Allen, who's famously a big fan of ecstasy. Yeah, and not long ago, he was one of the first people to take ecstasy on live television as part of an experiment in the United Kingdom. And he wrote this song about ecstasy, and the British football national team sang it. He is for England, England. Everyone is on one now. He is for England. That's how big it happened within a year, right? And this is how I knew ecstasy arrived in England, because the football season of 1990, right? The football hooligans, oh, you fuck, I know. I'm also melting here. I'm going to do another hit, actually. The football hooligans stopped taking speed and started doing ecstasy instead, right? And when they did that, they were all running up the road, hugging each other and being all lovely. So instead of cleaning blood off the streets when the football was on, we had to like be prepared for the fact that people would come and hug us when we were sitting in the garden. And that was ecstasy. That was what it did. And then for us, I remember, because coming into my early teens, yeah, we would go to London on the train, and there was a famous transvestite evening in a famous kind of gay club I've forgotten the name of now. It will come to me in a moment. I think the Apollo, but I might be wrong about that. And we would go there and pay £10 to get in, which was very expensive for those days. And then you'd come in, you go downstairs to the toilet, which was unisex, male and female. And in the toilet, there was a big transvestite guy who would sell you for £15 a speckled dove or $1 ecstasy tablet. And one of them was enough for me and my two friends to be out of our fucking face. Three of us out of our face.
You remember that when you take half a tablet and you feel it coming from your fingertips and it takes over your body, but you feel it go. And it goes in your arms and then in your head and then on your chest. Like, ecstasy is fucking phenomenal.
Oh, dude, honestly, I tell you what, I was never a guy for doing halves. I was always a guy for, like, even when I started, when someone told me, take half of that, I was like, really? Okay, I'm going to take 2. And that was how I started, you know? And I loved coming up on too much, like too much ecstasy, too much speed, too much whatever. That feeling at the end of the fingertips, tingle, 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 the hairs start to stand up and you're like, oh, bitch, maybe I shouldn't have taken the second one. Oh, dear, you know? And fuck, I miss that, you know? In a weird way, I miss that.
I remember we went to Lowlands, and Lowlands was expensive. It was a 3-day festival, and like $400 a ticket. So we thought, let's bring about 250 ecstasy tablets, and we're going to sell them there, and we're going to make a shitload of money, and we're going to get our money back. We didn't sell one, we ate them all. I did like 35 or 38 tablets in 3 days, non-stop. So uppers, downers, and then the whole day fucking beer. Nothing else. We didn't eat. We didn't. I didn't. Smoke weed like a motherfucker. And like, fucking wow, man. And that's how my alcoholism started.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think the reason I didn't become, for me, it was never an alcohol problem. It was a drugs problem. I think I have absinthe to thank for that, because I focused on a very young age on the fact that, I like the idea of absinthe. All of the people who I think are cool from history seem to have drunk this. I'll make that my drink. And therefore, it was like limiting my drinking activities. But like, dude, those fucking Lowlands and Dutch festivals, I used to smuggle my own weed into the Netherlands to go to those festivals. Can you believe that shit? I would literally smuggle weed into the Netherlands to fucking go to those festivals.
Why would you do that? We have the best weed in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I was a habitual drug smuggler, and this is something else I miss a lot. Although I'm never going to fucking do it again, I have to say. But I missed it, yeah? It was like... When I was very young, I had an uncle of mine who was a drug user, in a good way, a very functional drug user, not like a waste drug addict, you know, but very irresponsible. And he told me when I was young, when I was in my early teenage years, he said, Sasha, if you cross a border without carrying drugs, what have you won? That was what he taught me, yeah? And so that was how I approached it. And so therefore I was smuggling, for example, I used to smuggle LSD in my passport. My passport was really useful for smuggling. I often smuggled in my passport. The LSD, I used to drop it on the page numbers. I drop each page number. And so it would be like, oh, well, today I'm going to do page number 11. And then I'd put the corner in my mouth and suck the page number. And I was, oops, excuse me. I'm melting from that tincture. Excuse me.
I'm on fire.
Yeah. And so that was how I approached smuggling. I used to smuggle. I was traveling between Eastern Europe and Western Europe a lot in the early 90s, yeah? And I was going to Latvia a lot. I had a girlfriend there. And in Latvia, I could get really good hash for a really cheap price, you know? And I always used to travel on the train. And so you get this train and you go from like, I would travel through Europe and then into like Czech Republic, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia. And it was an old Soviet train. And so there'd be Soviet army soldiers on the train, even though, you know, we'd had perestroika, there were still these soldiers, they still had this job. And these two soldiers would come through the train. It was a great train as well, actually. It was like fucking wooden with like a metal front with a big red star on the front. It was a really fucking old school thing. And these two Russian army guys would come into your carriage. And then one of them would go, papers, and you'd have to give him the passport. And the other one would take your backpack and empty it on the floor and sort of kick around all of your things on the floor to see if anything there looked like it shouldn't be there, you know? And the guy with the passport would then sort of look at it and then stamp it with a Soviet flag like that. And that was the process. And so I had this idea. And so the way I used to smuggle hash from Latvia into Western Europe was I would take about 14 grams of hash and press it very flat. And I would put that inside the back leather cover of my passport. And when the guys would come to the carriage to check me out, so the one who's looking for the drugs is the guy who's emptying my bag on the floor. And the other guy who's supposed to just read my passport is holding the drugs, yeah? And the best thing about it was he would stamp it like that really hard. And then when you were finished with that, when you opened it up, the stamp would go all the way through on the hash. And so you'd have a Soviet Federation stamp on your hash. And it was joyful. Do you know what I'm saying?
So that's the end of the second part of our 3-part trilogy. Tune in next week for part number 3.
These are little crackers, and they are the perfect vessel for my hot sauce.
Okay.
See?
Optimum.